Welcome to Diamonds Forever, the Diamonds Network. 31, RAR, the line taking dominion, that's you, in every realm here on Earth, spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional. Dominion with conquering the world with love. And 13, Christ consciousness, your supernatural, natural self, coming out and putting the action to it. Did you know you're a superhero? Well, you'll find out here in many aspects of the Diamonds Network. So welcome, Elizabeth Diamond. Tonight's Voices of the Alternative World is the very newest show here on Diamonds Network with Dale and Sunny. And they'll be here. Let me just make a few announcements. As you guys know, there's a new number and a new recorded line. So that's at the top of the Diamonds blog always if you get lost. That's Diamonds with an S Forever 31.blogspot.com. We have a couple YouTube channels that's on the blog. The link is. I did make a new blog today if you haven't looked at the Diamonds blog regarding the new moon and some financial intel update that actually Cynthia from one of her sources sent her. So I put that up, and Benjamin Fulford's up and everything. Also, we had a great show Monday with a special guest, Reverend John M. Polk. That was a beautiful story of some meetups with ETs. Woohoo! Check it out. The link's up on the blog. The YouTube will be up in a few days. Cynthia did do a new moon show last Thursday. Check that out. It's up on the YouTube and the blog. You can find that. And please, I'm asking you if you could support Diamonds Network in any way you can, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. There is a button on the right side of the blog, donation, energy back in kind. You know, a monthly supporter would be great. Anything you can do would surely help the Diamonds Network move on through to love, conquering all, blowing up the world with love. How's that sound? Sounds fun and happy and relaxing, even though busy. So here we go. I'll turn it over to Dale and Sunny. This is going to be a great show tonight. Pass it on, you guys. Contribute by passing on the shows and the blogs. Thank you. Love you guys.
Absolutely. Love you.
Good evening.
I want to say this is October 13th, 2015. Thank you. And reference number 298 pounds. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here this evening on the Voices from an Alternative World. And to begin with, we'd like to start with Sunny invoking the law of one to get off on the right foot. Sunny, are you there?
I am here, Dale.
Okay. Well, please, let's.
Okay. Well, this will set the tone for this show. As the law of one is the fundamental law of the universe we all adhere to. We are all one. When one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, I ask that only that which is the highest good of all concerned happen here and now, and through all time and space I give thanks that this be done. So be it. Blessed be.
Amen.
Okay. Okay, Dale, I understand you're going to read something now from the Compassion website.
Yeah. Well, this,
yeah.
you know, we've all been kicking this thing around. Where do we start? And there has to be a beginning. And this is in my search to find a gestalt or constitution or mission statement, if you will. I've come upon the Charter for Compassion, and so this is the charter. It's we're compassionate, and this is the beginning. So, where compassionate action is first to arrive when anyone is suffering or in pain, in hamlets, villages, towns, suburbs, cities, and countries throughout the world. We're a world of varied beliefs, or where people of varied beliefs, lifestyles, languages, and cultures will truly listen, empathize, and reach out their hands to help one another in the spirit of compassion. Where all work to resolve our differences without violence, where we protect the innocent and learn how to forgive the guilty, and where compassion is our energy source for creating a peaceful world, in which all people have compassion for the earth and all life that exists on our beautiful planet. We are saddened when we hear about malnourished and starving people anywhere in the world, diseases that decimate families and communities when vaccines and medicines exist that could help. Violence and injustice in any form, whether it is directed against people of a different race, ethnic background, gender, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background, or any other reason that allows a person to claim power over another. And this is a very critical point right here, because what it means that we are by consensus seeking to find a better way and not controlling anything, but seeking outside of ourselves and within ourselves from all sources that thing which is the highest, best thing to do for everyone. And this is why one of the parts of this charter that resonates with me so much, and the fact that this is global. Okay, it doesn't have any borders, it doesn't have any religions, it doesn't have any differentiations. So, and to carry on, mistreatment of the frail, the elderly, the mentally ill, the incarcerated, the homeless, the immigrant, the poor, women and children, or any other vulnerable group. Abuse and neglect of children, sex trafficking or enslavement of any human being, and poverty wages for hard work. Families who must flee their homes because of terror, war, natural or man-made disasters, or other violence. The destruction or neglect of the beauty of the natural world and its resources. We know that many people across the world share both our sadness about the way things are and our vision for a better world. So we have created a Compassion Education Institute to educate and prepare those who understand the power of compassion to transform the inequities and the injustices of human civilization for their work to spread compassion and compassionate action throughout the world, to provide tools and strategies for organizing compassionate communities in which all people are treated with respect and compassion, to increase self-compassion, compassion for others, and compassionate action in any sphere of human activity, education, business, environment, faith, interfaith, spirituality, social services, restorative justice, the arts, healthcare, peace, nonviolence, science, and research. We've designed a program of courses to help you define and determine how the concept of compassion can make a difference in their personal lives, in their workplace, in their communities, and beyond. Gain and practice skills and competencies of self-awareness, self-compassion, and emotional intelligence that are the basis for the initial and continued development of compassion for others. Acquire skills and competencies that demonstrate compassion as an action that can be constantly present in our lives to bring about positive change for the betterment of the world. Explore the attributes: altruism, caring, empathy, encouragement, happiness, gratitude, kindness, listening abilities, mindfulness, resiliency, and responsibility of compassion as skills that are essential in the continued practice of compassionate action. Learn techniques and processes to facilitate further discussions and dialogue with others about compassion and compassionate action. Explore and develop a structural foundation that can lead to next steps in a compassionate journey, designing a compassionate community, or linking a local community with an international community in order to promote dialogue and compassionate action in schools, businesses, and congregations. Emotional intelligence for a compassionate...
This is so true.
Huh? Okay. Emotional intelligence for a compassionate world provides you with the most recent concepts of emotional intelligence, as well as many practical ideas for enhancing your emotional intelligence skills through videos, photos, and exercises, and for applying those skills to building a more compassionate world. And the introduction to the Charter for Compassion International. This foundation program brings together people who may be interested in the concept of the Charter for Compassion International, its mission and vision and subsequent work. Join us for a holistic overview of the international global movement that brings the Charter for Compassion to life. Below are a few of the courses that are being designed for the Institute. Our instructors are international, and courses are being developed in English, Dutch, and Spanish. And I want to put a little preface in here. Primarily, what we are is an organization that's brought together worldwide and globally to educate people on how to change the world peacefully from the present war, crime, and poverty to the future of love, peace, and abundance. Okay, so we're actually changing the polarity, and we're going from negative to positive. And so this is an educational program to learn the thinking and behavior that we have to make that happen. And that's fundamental to moving forward. This is, we're drawing the plans for the new age, and they're comprehensive and they're detailed and they're based on axiomatic principles that are universal. So there's such as self-compassion online, using the science of self-compassion to cultivate resilience and well-being, compassion at work, local gatherings to connect compassionate cities and communities, become an ambassador for compassion, past reality integration, the art of living and teaching from our hearts in love and compassion, growing tenderness for self and other via writing and ecology, become an agent of kindness in the workplace, cultivating compassion in healthcare, among others. And then it goes on. There's there's the WellZoo webpage site. So I want to give you this information here at the bottom, and it's basically the Charter for Compassion, Post Office Box 10787, Bainbridge Island, Washington 98110, in the United States. And the email address is contact@charterforcompassion.org. Once again, that's contact@charterforcompassion.org. And I just want to finish up briefly with saying that, we're at the stage on the world where this is the Continental Congress, and we're putting together our Constitution. What are the things that we have to have globally to move into the new age and establish these communities, and what we have to do internally to change our thoughts and our behavior and develop these individual communities. So the message in short is think globally, act locally, and go through these changes in behavior that are going to be necessary for the new world to be successful. And then there's while we're at this beginning juncture, I just want to recommend one book that is really, really about controlling your emotions and controlling your thoughts and controlling your behaviors, and it's by Dr. Daniel Coleman, and the title of the book is Emotional Intelligence. So this educational process, we have to learn how to build a new world, just like they learned how to build a republic. It's just a four-letter word, and it's just work. Okay, and nothing's going to change unless the work gets done. And so, having said that, I want to open up the floor for conversation on just what we do as a group and as individuals to facilitate this change. Okay, and then thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Well, absolutely, compassion should definitely be the foundation of our new world. And I'd like to bring in the idea that, it's wonderful to have all these ideas and concepts, and we have all these ideas and concepts. We can integrate them into our whole being, and opening our hearts is very important. And so many of us have wounds in our hearts, in our lower chakras, lower centers, so to speak, that need to be brought forth and healed. And doing that, and I'm saying this because during all my experience with communal groups, this seems to be one of the issues that separates people and causes discord, is when people's deep issues come up, like somebody wants to be the boss, and wants to run things and tell everybody else how to do things. And then one of the other things is relationship issues. And what's known as the shadow parts of ourselves often comes out in these situations, and especially in the relationship issues. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I believe most of us have been doing all this deep work with ourselves all these years. And I know I was involved with 2 major communal groups, and after the beginning of the 80s, I went off more on my own, and I've been more on my own ever since until now. But nevertheless, I feel that we are building community once again in what we're doing right here, plus reaching out as we are to others that we know are involved with this way of thinking, being, and loving and serving, and hold the same vision that we all hold. So that's, of course, I believe is the foundation, is holding this vision and being one with what we desire to manifest in our world. And I've been noticing on Facebook that a lot of this is being, I really see the rising of this consciousness coming forth a lot, and I feel that focusing on this and posting things related to all of this is very beneficial, and it helps all of us to keep the faith and keep going, and just hold the vision and keep working on ourselves, and also playing, which I haven't been doing enough of lately. But anyway, I just wanted to bring out these points, and it's wonderful that happening now, and I feel that this is the time for it, even though for many years I was out of touch with people from the One World family, and even people from the Faithist organization, and that's been building. But at this time, I like to see everybody come into harmony, and focus on the essential things that we all want to manifest, and not get caught up in our differences. We can talk about them, but we don't want our differences to separate us, including our theology, or, we can be focusing on the one. This is definitely a good thing that we've been doing, focusing on the one, that all are one, and allowing the light to come through. So I'm in contact with a group, local group, and there may be a person from that group that will come to speak on this show in the near future. It's called Sierra Foothills Forming Eco Village. So I guess I have said most of what I want to say right now. I know that in the old days we used nature's potions or sacraments to open up our consciousness to the higher realms, to have direct experiences, and that had its good side and its not so good side. But I would say that it did help us see a vision. No more is that useful in my life, but it was a tool that we used back then. And in the One World family, we didn't use any hard drugs. We just used the psychedelics, and with reverence, I will say, not just the partying purposes. Okay, well, I'm going to let another person speak now, and may this be a very productive and helpful evening for all.
Well, this is Candy, and I have a little feedback for Dale's remarks.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate Dale sharing that. I can see his enthusiasm for these grand ideals that he's talking about, compassion and kindness. Summarizing what he says, I think his mission statement would be: think globally, act locally with compassion. And that's a very good mission statement. I know at Unity we had a 2-day workshop in determining what our mission statement would be, and I think we came up with something like a safe place to support each other in our individual spiritual paths with fun and love. And that was an interesting workshop to attend and come to that beautiful sentiment. So I have an article later in the show that I might want to share about the pros and cons of community and things. But I appreciated what Dale and Sunny said. I will say that this power struggle and these relationship things, I don't know. In the past, we thought that in community that was for the creator, that it was unseen negative energies that were bothering us. And we kept trying to remember that any power struggle or relationship issues and things were mostly stimulated not by the good idealistic Owaspians that came to see us, but by the unseen demons and druids and things. Now that we understand that there was a concerted, plotted, detailed plans by the reptilians and the Dracos to create tension, and that they fed off of those negative energies, I think that we need to relook at all our community experiences more in the light of what Christopher Stephen Jacobs has been sharing with us on the Diamond Network. And that certainly, I don't think I'd want to be in a community if Christopher didn't clear us all out and take away our implants and help us put up our magical shields and really be a human effort and not be interfered with by negative ETs. I had a quick question for Dale. He gave the address and contact at charterforcompassion.org. And was the 4 a digit or FOR?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What was the email? Was there any digits in the email?
Hold on 1 second here. Let me get back to that page. Okay, just a second. I'll be. Give me a second, please. 1 second. And
you said contact at Charter.
Yeah, that is the actual. That's the actual email. I'll give it to you again. Hold on. Got to go a couple more steps. I'm almost there. And down at the bottom of the page. Okay,
I hope
here we
you
go.
think that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This is the email address. It's contact at charterforcompassion.org.
Is the 4 a digit?
No. It's the 4 is FOR.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the word.
That's what I wrote.
Okay. All righty. Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dale and Sunny, and I turn it back to you guys.
Could I say one more thing before the before the next person? A little bit of feedback here. Just that what Candy said about the entities interfering and all. I totally agree with that as being a factor. And I feel that both that and our own inner work is necessary for creating harmony amongst each other and communities. I just say I do agree with that. That I feel we need to work on ourselves as well. Okay, thank you.
I could add a few thoughts I came up with listening to you guys talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what Candy just brought in, and then you reiterated, Sonny, that's a very poignant part of a paradigm that's really paradigm shifted. Actually, it's shifted now, and we're in the shift, and it's going to, not having controllers anymore, not being in that prison and becoming our whole self, WHOLE. So communities are going to really look different. I mean, maybe I don't know, I didn't live in that, but in the communities, everybody got together and did what their heart wanted to, like painting and all that. But they also had that little line of thought behind their brain that they had to, yes, do their passion, but quite not maybe do their whole 100% passion, what they like, because part of the passion that came out of them, they had to, make money to live on in the community even, because we have that tool now. But we're creating our way out of even having to have that tool called money. So I perceive, and technologies are coming into play too. Community living is going to be, we start with this, but it's even going to paradigm shift even more compared to the 60s. Like, imagine you're in a community, people have a job to clean the house once every 2 weeks and do all the cooking and all the dishes one day out of every 2 weeks. And, yes, tomorrow we get this technology where, I'm just going to my imagination now, where there's this technology where you just hit the blue button and it dusts your whole house, and you hit the green button and the dishes are all washed and the house is all clean. Let's just say that. So that will take that part out of that the community having to spend the whole day cleaning and washing dishes, and their job that day would just be to push the blue button, push the red button, and the day would be freed up. That's just an example. And a lot of other paradigm shifting will go on. You could really, really follow your passion and really, really be your whole unique self in that community. And yes, and our consciousness is expanding. Our supernatural, natural self is coming out, and that will be natural with us in our emotions, happy, restful, want to sit and have a deep conversation with somebody, really interested in that and having empathy and compassion and having the time to, because they're not in that rush jailbird jail anymore. And I think community is a natural thing. They still do it around countries in around the world, and people in Africa, people in India, Asia. The whole family lives together, and it's just beautiful, and they all help raise the kids together. And one more thing, what was the other thought? Anyway, those are the thoughts I had. I'll just throw those in. Oh, and I just request Candy to read that little flyer again, maybe the last thing then before Dale brings on what he's going to end the show, because I really like that flyer. That encourages all of us. Thank you, guys. What do you think, what the thoughts I brought through? Anything else inspired in your mind? How we be living differently in the communities, but in a way 1,000-time upgrading than you guys experienced the living in communities. And, not just in living communities, but we're gathering together in businesses. We're networking together in business to go globally to help the whole world for the highest good of all, businesses for the highest good of all, and resources for everybody. And everybody is a like mind is gathering together in those kind of communities, too. So I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, having businesses that originate in the communities are certainly desirable until we move into when we don't need money anymore. But, yeah, I like that idea of not having to do housework, of course. That was a major part of
we can still have a business and not have money because our business is from out of our heart just to help everybody, you know, and they help us in return.
Yeah,
some of the businesses like East Wind's community, they produce the East Wind peanut butter, and they have another business where they make sandals. Another community, they make whole grain breads and Ezekiel breads. And of course, Sunny shared about her community that their business was the restaurant. So there's and there's communities rural communities that have various farming farming products and all that support their community. I think that there's been too much talk about self-sustainability. People, they don't want to rely on a water system or something. They carry water in a bucket. They have dull meals because they're trying to eat just what they can grow. And I feel that there's so much more things about harmony and compassion and relationships that some self-sufficiency is wonderful, but being discouraged because it's so difficult to reach 100% self-sufficiency. We need to be cooperative with our neighborhoods and those outside of the community in many instances, I feel like. But in the future, there's going to be this whole new thing when we have the help from our star brothers and sisters, and we can push the green button and the red button. Well, maybe Cynthia's here or someone else. I see. I think Lance wants to say.
Oh. So what if there's people that's too lazy to dump their poo-poo buckets?
Back to
what
basics.
did he say? Something about a poo-poo button, huh?
Somebody
who's going to dump the poo-poo bucket?
Is that Lance? Lance, you are just a trip.
I'm out in left field, you know. I just came in to take a break. I've been out by the fire pit looking at spaceships and stuff, but so I come say hi for a change. How you guys doing?
Hi, Lance.
Good. Well, what do you think about community living? Tell us your spoof on that.
I think it's awesome if you could just, have the right people in the space, and a lot of times you got to find the right people that you resonate with and that you're trying to accomplish the same goals, You got to have the same agenda.
And that's what our mission statement is all about tonight, discussing, trying to get someone to at least intellectually at first, agree to the same mission statement. And so I've thrown it out there that so many of them are talking about self-sustainability in their mission statements, and I'm not sure that that's the first step.
I'd like to chime in on that issue of sustainability, Candace, and what it is, and keep in mind my background is mechanical contracting, so the world that I say, and I bring one community global into play here, and the meeting I had with the executive director, Jay Sobel, and what with the technology that we have in the present day, if we have if we had control of this situation right now with these refugees that are let's just say there's a natural disaster and you have 800,000 people displaced. Well, if you could put modules together, okay, you can take these people and with about 5 or 10 tractor trailers in a matter of a week or two, within 30 days, you're going to have infrastructure, you're going to have habitat, you're going to have the beginning of these grow houses that grow marijuana, oddly enough, they can be used for agriculture. So you can take these modular communities and put them online as soon as you get the solar panels up and you get the wind generators and you get you get these deep water well systems that there's water everywhere, but it's just not cheap to get to in the present day economics. But there's pockets of there's underground rivers and all over the place, but they're at greater depths. So as this technology develops, there's not going to be a crisis, because the sustainability issue comes in where to get into an uninhabited land that's unoccupied and undesirable and make that productive and flourishing, and that's very doable. And I refer to Jeffrey Lawton, and he's my permacultural hero. I met him in Southern California about 6 months ago. I met him and his wife at a conference, an eco conference, and he said, "Yeah, all we need is access to land. We don't, and then once we have access, we go to work and make it productive. Even what seemingly is totally undesirable can be made productive and habitable, and so it's not a matter. And Jay Sobel and his group, One Community Global, they're actually that's what they want to do. They want to be people, bring architects in and design cities that they can get up and running in a short period of time as the demand is made available. If there's a demand and all of a sudden you've got 1 million people or 2 million people that need houses, that's not going to be a problem if you get into a systematic, organized way of doing it. That's not as big a crisis as you'd think. And so we have to break down the borders, break down the politics, break down the religions, and break down all the barriers so that we have the freedom to do that. So sustainability is really, really important, but it's got to be put in context. Where what people do initially in a primitive state without resources, it's not really appetizing. I don't like it, but if you add solar and wind and some of these new technologies, and all of a sudden, you've got the internet, you've got all of these facilities, and you can be linked to the centers of the world and be way out in the boondocks in the middle of nowhere and have a sustainable community where people have clothing and shelter and education and all the things that you have in the big city. So to me, it's exciting. If I could get 4 tractor trailers together and with all the parts on them and build a community in 30 days and then have people that are homeless go in there and occupy them, that's a win-win situation. And I don't care where the land is. We'll make it work. If somebody donates, 500,000 acres in a colder climate area that's inaccessible, that's beautiful, because the idea is that we want to take all of this undeveloped land and develop it. What's happening now is 80% of the world's on 1% of the land. It's all on the coastlines and vulnerable to events, catastrophic weather and hurricanes and tornadoes and what have you. So, we want to disperse the population, get people in smaller communities where they're a vital part of the community and the governance of that community. And we need everybody. Contrary to this world where they're trying to get rid of people, I want to have access so that the population can start moving things in another direction. And I just thought don't be afraid of sustainability. But on the other hand, I have nothing against somebody that wants to live in an urban city environment. This is a matter of choice. Some people are in a position they just like to have a place to get out of the weather. And I think the impetus on that sustainability issue is get everybody housed and fed and in an environment where they can at least have they've got enough food and they have the sustenance to sustain themselves and be self-sufficient. and without government's participation or intervention, and so we got a big job ahead of us, getting all these governments online to know that you don't have to be afraid, but be grateful that when you have you have a situation that's a little rough, that you've got a place for people to go without any concern about money or who owns it or any of that stuff. We just gotta change our thinking, change our behavior, and become very scientific and systematic in how we go about this. And the first beginning is the mission statement. What's going on inside of us. What's making us work and what's making us tick, and why are we doing these things? And we all come to the conclusion that, well, it's the highest, best thing for all of us to do, for everybody. That is simply stated. So anyway, that's just an answer. I'm an advocate of self-sufficiency and sustainability, because if you spread the communities out, you spread the population out, then you don't have all these millions of people sitting in one place. Then when a catastrophe does come, a weather event, it's relatively benign. You're not trying to deal with millions and millions of people in a state of disaster. And some of these things, the situation in New Orleans comes to mind, the hurricane in New York, the tidal wave in Indonesia. Name your poison. And it's only because we've got the human race living on the land area the size of a pin. That's all. The vast majority of the land is unpopulated. So that's we have to change our way of thinking, and again, change our behavior, and then our reality will change.
Well, that's made some good points, Dale. I do believe that sustainability is important. I believe in finding ways to work with nature better, although we don't have to be in absolute survival mode unless that's what we wind up doing. But I feel it's a good idea to have, of course, to have organic gardens and even eventually a form of energy. But of course, with a more advanced technology comes in, we'll have a balance between the space technology, the more advanced technology, and living with nature. So I feel like it has to be a whole. We need to respect and love our Mother Earth, of course. That's very basic. Know how to take care of our planet, and she will take care of us. So yes, I feel like it's a full circle. That the new technology that will be in harmony with the universe and will not harm Mother Earth.
Yeah, when I hear Aldous Huxley come out with build a better model, it's going to be a better model in every respect. You're going to look at anything that exists here and say, Jesus, we got to tear that thing down. That's just obscene to even have it operating. I see with the cooperation of all these communities, the macroeconomic issue of building major transportation systems, magnetic levitation trains, and all these other innovations in transportation and communications and education, it's going to be disfigure at least exponentially times 10 better than anything that's going on here. And you just got to start with the foundation and build it. It's not going to magically happen like we wave a wand, but we know what our compass heading is, and we just keep at it until we reach the point where the pivot point will say, there is nobody in the world is hungry today. There's the distribution and production methods have created the abundance where nobody's going to go hungry today. They're going to go to sleep with a full stomach.
Yeah, and
that's
a point I just thought of is it's going on. Even the Matrix, if you will, is contributing to it. Candy brought in 3 or 4 weeks ago or shorter, that Russia, the government, is giving land away So if a government in Russia is giving the land away, which it should be free anyway or whatever, shouldn't belong or owned to anybody, but you take care of what you're on. But if that government's doing it, if that government is expanding its consciousness and coming out of the matrix, if you will, other governments will be too. And then put it together with the people that are working on making these communities now and that are building on it. One of these days, you're right, Dale, it's going to come to a crescendo, even from all sides.
And see, they're laughing at us. You know, when Putin gives that land away, he's laughing at us because it's land he doesn't want anything to do with. He's got all the land that he thinks is valuable. And all we want to do is live. We don't want to, you know, we don't want any of the, we're not looking to get rich off of oil or gold or any of these other issues. We just want a nice, warm, clean, peaceful place to live, you know, and so our agenda is say, and that's what Jeffrey told me. He said, well, all we have to have is the land, and these believe me, every country has land that they don't want. Okay, well that's bingo. That's we get the land. We'll make the best out of the land we can get. Forget about the rest, you know. And let them have what they think is valuable. And as soon as we have access to it, the first thing I want to do is order about 100 million caterpillars and just tear the stuff down because they're just big. You know, they're great places for your money to sleep in overnight. You know, but there's nothing here made for human beings. It's all about profit and money. So even in its design and its ease of use, it's just not made for human beings. You know.
What were you talking about? Tearing down
all this concrete, for instance, in Southern California, that's covering up the richest soil in the world.
Right. That's
true.
Too much.
And all they've bought up all the coastline, all the beautiful coastline, and the whole coastline should be a park for people to visit, you know, and we should make a beautiful coastline from Alaska all the way down to the tip of the South America and all over all those areas where we can move around and travel and not have any barriers, you know, just free up. We got to, you know, the man has put his head in a box and he's enslaved and incarcerated, and he's got to, you know, you got to think differently if you're going to get your spirit free. And once that happens, then the physical transformation takes place, because everything you see is just an outward example of what's going on internally, you know.
Well, that's very much the American thing about private ownership of our coastal beauty. In Europe, there are parkways along the rivers, and when we crossed over into Canada, my children particularly noticed it when we crossed over from Michigan into Canada. There were just houses and businesses and things right up against this gorgeous river. But on the other side, on the Canadian side, it was all parkway and picnic tables, and so gorgeous. And what a contrast. Well, yeah. I don't know, Dale, you're living in Long Beach, California. I was born there. I lived there first. And you know, and I'd come out to Missouri where people don't like all the rocks, and I've got all this space, you know, and I've been working at this community thing, you know, since 1974. So yeah, you know, you just do it, and I just did it, and I encourage you to just do it. But anyway, is Cynthia here, or is Joseph one of our panel members that would like to speak? I still have this little presentation I was going to do, but let's see what the others have to say.
Heard somebody come in late. Is anybody else on that hasn't spoken?
No, Candy's up next, I guess, to read that. I'm looking forward to what she's going to have to read. This is a great conversation. Thank you, Dale and Sunny, for thinking of this. This is beautiful. Yes, I love it.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I love your enthusiasm. Well, this is article, and by the way, there was a movie out about 4 years ago that really was a comedy, and it made a lot of fun of community living, and I was kind of appalled and horrified at the poor negative images that it was showing about community life. And then I went to IC.org, and there was a review of the movie, and it was quite positive. And they said, actually, the movie starred that same actor that starred in MASH. He said, it actually mentioned every point that is part of community life. And, of course, it exaggerated it to be a comedy. But he said, I'm glad that the positive and negative aspects of community life was shared with the mainstream world in the movie. But this is an article by Dave, and he says, I spent this afternoon in an orientation session at Whole Village Commune, a very successful 25-person, 200-acre intentional community and eco-village about a half an hour drive from where I live, northwest of Toronto. And, of course, I do find that, other cultures, people are just cooperative. And, of course, Canada is so interculturally blended. And I have certainly enjoyed my visits to Toronto, although I didn't go to an eco-village. And, of course, I'll be speaking Thursday night about Anastasia. And the Anastasia movement is all about establishing eco-villages. Dave says, it was a blistery, rainy day, but the welcome that I and 10 others received from our host was warm and gracious. I'd like to thank especially the women who painstakingly and candidly explained the principles, processes, and highs and lows of eco-village living. You always learn more from seeing and doing than from research and reading, and I learned an enormous amount. Here's what I learned in particular. Now, I think this is amazing, considering it was just one afternoon, it looked like. But anyway, number one, a lot of people in intentional community really get sustainability. The people I met were extremely well-read, and thanks, I suspect, to the Internet, well-informed and well-connected. They know about the organic local food trade-off, the challenges of permaculture, bioregionalism, and biodynamic agriculture than I could ever hope to know, and about how to close the self-sufficiency and sustainability an eco-community can reasonably hope to get in our modern economic and society. What this meant to me, this was hugely encouraging. I felt immediately as if I were among friends, people I hope to spend more time with in the future. Number two, intentional community is a hard sell. Research suggests that the average IC only has about 11 members, and the failure rate is phenomenal. Half of the total ICs planned and under development are still at the idea stage, and most of them will never get past that stage. To even contemplate joining an intentional community, you have to have three things. A shared vision and shared principles with others. B, the freedom to pull up stakes and move to where the IC is. And C, the resources, money or time to invest in becoming a full member and participate in the work on an IC. How many of us have that? One person I spoke to compared it to joining a monastery. It's a big and complicated change. Because of this, despite the success of Whole Village, I suspect I would not have much difficulty getting accepted. Computer went crazy for a second. There are a few memberships available, rather than the waiting list I'd expected. But once you've bought in, you might find it difficult to find someone to buy your membership if you change your mind or your circumstances force you to move. Now, what this meant to me, until I know for sure where I belong, I probably will not invest in an intentional community. Number three, intentional community done right is affordable and responsible. The members of Whole Village did two things very well. They did not start until they had a core group of 3 women with farming backgrounds and 3 men with carpentry or other useful backgrounds to build rather than buy much of what they needed. And they paced themselves and used connections frugality, and reciprocity to acquire much of what they needed at less than market cost. They did this, to their credit, without compromising on quality, sustainability, or principles. Everything there is locally made, natural, organic, free of toxins, energy conserving, and durable. You can buy a small unit, close to 1,000 square feet, and share in the 6,000 square foot common areas and huge acreage, giving you a much larger, effective living space than the average single-family dwelling in the suburbs of Toronto for a fraction of the cost. What's more, food grown on the premises and shared labor save you a fortune in hours of time every week compared to owning your own nuclear family home. Now, I think that's great that they had 6 people. It is usually you'll have 2 or 3 adults come together. And the fact that they actually got 6 was impressive. What this meant to me, after hearing about some ICs that are priced out of reach of most people, I was very relieved to hear that some ICs are very reasonably priced. For me, this is no longer a pipe dream. 4, skill mismatches are a chronic problem with intentional communities. Like most non-urban ICs, whole village is commercially a farm. What such communities need, therefore, are people who know about farming, maintenance, construction, and have the time and enthusiasm for this hard physical work. What such communities tend to attract by contrast are, and Bill Waspy talks about this, the idealists, the thinkers, the writers, the white-collar office and technology people looking for life closer to the land but not very good at it, and people who are too busy with their wage slave office jobs and commuting to them to learn and help out with what needs to be done. I suspect this is probably the largest reason why most ICs, even successful ones, have so few members. Now, what this meant to me, Dave, I know nothing about farming, gardening, or construction, and I'm pretty useless with my hands. And my job keeps me so busy I have neither time nor energy for pitching in with hard labor. What is really needed for ICs and where I might be able to help is mechanisms for creating natural enterprises in ICs so that members can make a viable living right there in ways other than farming, maintenance, and construction without the need to commute or work really long hours. Until then, I have to confess I'm not very useful to an IC, and I know I feel badly about not contributing my fair share. What's worse, the commute would kill me. 5, communal living requires a lot of compromise and adaptability and passion for simple living. 6, farms, I'm going to skip some of this. Farms are not natural places, are not particularly attractive and require huge amounts of land. The farmers I know have been quick to tell environmentalists this, but for many it takes a while to sink in. Well, that's a little bit prejudicial. I mean, we do so much on just 5 acres that I've got. I mean, 5 acres is a lot of land, and you can produce a lot of good stuff on 5 acres if you're not bringing in the animals, if you're having a vegetarian farm. 7, Canada is cold most of the year when you're working outdoors, and I'm going to look for an IC in Belize or someplace warm if I want a rural one. What this meant to me is when I retire, I will live someplace warmer, someplace where I can be outside almost all the time. So I will be revisiting Whole Village to learn more and help out and build new friendships as my time permits, but I will probably not be joining as a member. When I retire, I hope to be joining a vegan intentional community in a warmer nation, probably one in an early stage so I can have a hand in designing it, striving for radical simplicity and zero input. In the meantime, I haven't the faintest idea. If you are looking for a way to live lighter on the land, find a community with people with whom you share values and purpose, live more responsibly and self-sufficiently, the intentional community model may be for you. So that is that was Dave's response, and I think it covered a lot quickly. So there's a lot of talk about it, these ideas on the internet, and I think because there's a need, people are hungry there. They're lonely and feel separated from humanity. But I know that one community we visited, the one that had the bakery as their business, and in the cafeteria, and there were 104 members, and everybody, we looked in their eyes, and they all looked tired and exhausted. And they had bought a old hotel, and everybody had a small hotel room as their private quarters. And it just seemed like, that they were really drained. I think this whole village was probably as successful as it is because there's only 25 of them. Well, this subject is big, and I think it's wonderful that Elizabeth is donating one night a week to it. And so I don't know, just my husband and I alone raising the children. You need more interaction. You need more adult interaction, and not focusing on the children things all the time. And that was part of my attraction to appreciating community. And this man obviously doesn't have children. There's so many people with children, and they don't want to move to a community that's got teenagers or children older than theirs. And there's all these different issues about child rearing that really throws a wrench in some of these ICs. But I'm sure anxious for when our friends from Venus can show us some positive models and some guidance, and that because I think we'll all be living in ICs in the future, and I think that can be exciting. I know that the man who promoted domes in the 20s and 30s, he designed a small bubble kind of a home, and he had millionaire backers, and they weren't going to go to these suburbs and where you have to commute to jobs and have mortgages. And these were small. They were gorgeous, and they were much better than the mobile home living that we're doing today. But then the cabal found out about it, and the bankers, and they destroyed all the phototypes. And there's only one that's surviving, and it's in the museum in Michigan. It's at President Ford's museum in Michigan, and that is still such a wonderful model. If we could find some backers that would build those, because they were self-contained, and the water and the solar panels and everything that were in those little homes were just fabulous. And if you had a group of those little homes with a big community building like Anastasia talks about, and a community school, it'd be wonderful living. That's what I've got, Sonny and Dale.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is one of the things that I didn't get with Jay Sobel, but what has to be done is, each one of these communities has got to be and will be like the snowflakes. There's two alike, and there's got to be this diversity in design, and that comes from the creator's inspiration. And if you gathered 100 architects and you said, design me 100 different cities that are not alike, and then you got examples all over the country of real small colleges that are located and designed in beautiful areas with beautiful surroundings, and you walk in there, and it just says, wow, I'd like to live like this, because it's just compatible with your mind and your body and everything, and everything is accessible, and I think the model is, if you get, and it's about self-governance. If you get more than a couple thousand people, you start to lose control, because somebody's not engaged. The idea is you keep it small, and I think 2,000 to 3,000 is a workable number for the average community. Some may be a little larger, some may be a little smaller, but the point is that everyone is a vital part of that community, and loved and cared for and nurtured, and the needs are taken care of, and the beauty about it, Candace, is that if the community as a whole decides that, hey, we got a really great idea, we'd like to make some changes, there's nothing, we're not going to look at a building for 1,000 years because somebody owns it. We're going to say, well, look at this, what we've got here. There's new technology, and it's better to tear this thing down and rebuild than try to remodel it. The idea is, if the skills, the building skills, the building artists, the architects, the engineers, if we need to continually keep changing, like the world and the universe is in motion and keeps changing. We have a tendency to have a fixed revelation. In other words, once we put a law in effect, and once we get the building codes done, and once we get this done, we build a building, and that's the way it's going to stay, and it's going to be that way for 100 years. And so we can't new talent and new ideas. There's no growth in that scenario, and we should be growing constantly in all areas, and constantly being open to change, not just to change because we have a whim, but if something comes along that's really solid and proven to be solid, well, we're not going to stick with. We would never stick with fossil fuel internal combustion engines when as soon as electricity appeared. We'd say, oh, let's get rid of that crap. Just all it does is poison the atmosphere and ruin the environment. But no, because we've got this idea of land and ownership and money and capitalization. Well, we're going to be sucking on these tailpipes until they squeeze all the money out of it and all the profit. And so this dynamic in life is going to change. We're going to, mankind is going to move as quick as the idea. That's faster than the speed of light. So
paradigm is changing. Paradigm is changing. The focus is changing. And and regarding buildings, just got through with Indigenous Peoples Weekend here in Nevada County, and they talked about the fact that they used to have round buildings. Round is much more in tune with nature. And then when the Europeans came, they made everything square. So I've seen a lot of models of buildings where, they're beautiful and round, and the, new type of, the architecture's been here for a while, but just hasn't been used too much. But, Bucky Fuller and Frank Lloyd Wright. Anyway, just to comment on the architecture, but I feel like it's time to wrap this up. I have to go because...
And environmental controls, we're going to be able to do things with the weather that we never did before because of the technology. And so actually, once that happens, that changes the whole paradigm.
Can I cut in very quick?
Yeah.
My question tonight would just be, how do we even start when everyone is so caught up in this system that they always have to, about the time you're about to do some community stuff, you have to take off and go to work, you have to go to school, you have to raise your kids.
My answer to that, is this Lance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lance, my answer to that is necessity, throughout history, you've got to look at the pivot points in transition. When we made the transition from hunter-gatherer and we developed cities and agricultures and the feudalisms were formed, that was a matter of choice, because it was better to be stationary and have a life that's stable rather than to run around following the animals. And then when feudalism came into being, and you had organization, you had architecture, you had culture and dance and art and all these things develop, and communication and knowledge, and then the abuses were so severe that
I guess what I'm saying is, like I can hunt and fish. I know how to.
Well, necessity. What I'm trying to get at, Lance,
if I can I can cover my teepee.
Lance, the change is going to happen out of
technology to get off the grid.
Yeah,
but
the change.
Who the fuck ever comes out here to fucking help with shit? You know what I mean?
Well, Lance, the thing of it is necessity. Okay, because this system no longer works, and the little key to this is technology is destroying capital investment, and there's no way to compute against a robot that'll work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for $2 an hour. And it doesn't take so the population is increasing, and the economic system is not absorbing the population. So
the first thing to do is you have to return to constitutional money, which is based on gold and silver.
Well,
you have to be able to earn an honest wage and not.
Let's not get all over the map. Listen, my uncle was an economist, and he graduated through the different schools of economics, and he finally got to Silvio Gazelle, which was inverse interest on money, and it created a lot of wealth. And then he came to the conclusion that if people were that smart, that they would adopt an inverse interest system and get away from the bond debt system. They were smart enough to live without money. And it was shortly after that they discovered the OWASP. So what you're going to see is people are going to go to this direction because the economic conditions demand it. It's not like, oh, gee, I have a hard time going there. It's going to get to the point that you're not going to be able to survive. One, you can't carry enough money around for the goods that are available, and if you could find them. Because the thing about manufacturing is that there's no profit in it, it doesn't get produced. And it's a simple economic fact. So this is a time for change. It was a time to go to feudalisms, the time to go to monarchies, the time to go to republics, and now it's time to go to fraternities and intentional communities. It's just a natural process, a natural evolution in our spiritual and physical development. It's not, and you just have to figure out where you belong in the matrix, and do the thing that is the intelligent thing for you to do, and that's a decision each individual has to make for themselves. Where they are, and some are going to stick with the status quo, and that's perfectly fine. It's just that for those people who can see it, in the valley of the blind, he who has one eye is king. If you have the perception to see it and you have the knowledge and the understanding to do it, then you just do it. And then there are thousands of intentional communities all over the world, and these people have already made their choices. And so it's on an individual basis. What you can do and what you understand.
I feel that it's time that we end the show. I thank you for all the wonderful points that you made, Dale, and all the discussions that we've had. So
thank you. I've been, education. We have to educate ourselves. We can't just walk into a new way of life without knowledge, and this education process is
doing
something
that ongoing process. Yeah.
On an individual basis.
Yeah.
So anyway, having said that, I've got I had a movie section and I had a food recipe to give, but I'll save that for next week. And I had a book to read, and so it's having love and fun. Candy.
Yeah, we need that too. We need the full spectrum of life, and some of us cannot. Well, we find that it's more difficult to have a full spectrum of life in a secular lifestyle, which getting out of it isn't that easy sometimes. But anyway, I feel that we were going to try to keep this at an hour, and it's getting close to 7, and I think I'd like to say when the power of love overcomes the love of power, we will have world peace. And it's in our hands. Our Creator is our servant, and as soon as we love peace and wish to have peace more than we wish to have war, it'll disappear. It's just it's up to.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I'd like to invite folks to the conference call tomorrow night. We'll start an hour later, and it'll be Peter Hargens from Pasadena speaking from the Book of Esra in the community UFO book Owaspy. And so join us then. And, you know, this poem that I've read a couple of times, you know, it just says, you know, become part of the future, join the culture of the future. And that's what we're talking about on these Tuesday night calls, and I just thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, Candy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Shine, diamonds. Shine on.
Shine on, you crazy diamond. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Sweet dreams.